everybody, welcome back in the shed. I'm Troy. This is Dave.
Hola.
Today we're talking about the top 3 rock supergroups. But before we get started, I want you to leave your picks below, see if they match ours. Also, make sure to subscribe to the channel and like this video. So, supergroups, how would you define a supergroup?
Supergroups, by definition, are groups that came from other groups and split off and then formed their own little group, and then they became a supergroup.
Yeah.
You know, it's a little fuzzy, but I think I've got 3 good choices for supergroups.
Yeah, that's what makes me excited, because we don't know each other's picks. I don't know what he's picked. He doesn't know what I've picked. So I'm anxious to hear your supergroup picks, because I guarantee you 2 of mine you probably didn't even think of.
Okay.
All right, you ready to go?
I'm ready.
All right, what's your number 3 supergroup?
Number 3 supergroup is going to be Blind Faith. This supergroup was formed from the remnants of Cream, which was Eric Clapton and Ginger Baker on drums, and Steve Winwood from Traffic. You know, many people regarded Cream as a supergroup because, you know, it was formed when Eric Clapton split from the Blues Breakers, and he had Ginger Baker and Jack Bruce, who were in this band called the Graham Bond Organization, which was a pretty popular English band, but they weren't really that well known around here. In America, they never really broke through, so I never put Cream in that supergroup category, but I definitely put Blind Faith in that category. I think what really makes it a supergroup is because it included Steve Winwood. Now, Steve Winwood was a prodigy musician, keyboardist, played guitar too, singer. He was in the Spencer Davis group when he was 14 years old. Winwood, went on to form Traffic when he was 19, and they had success. When Eric decided he wanted to go ahead and do something outside of Cream, and he got, Ginger Baker to go with him, and got Winwood to come in, they really created this one album called Blind Faith, which is a one-and-done album, and it had a lot of, great songs. Some of my favorite songs off that album were Can't Find My Way Home.
And I'm wasted and I can't find my way home.
Well, all right. And Presence of the Lord.
In the presence of the Lord.
And that was an album, actually, that Steve Winwood did all the vocals on that album. Clapton's a good singer, but Winwood was the singer and the keyboardist in the band. And, they were kind of huge. They played this concert in Hyde Park, London, in front of 100,000 people. And they did a short tour as well. For whatever reason, it's probably because of Clapton, because he was a, impatient kind of guy. He broke up the band, and then he went to go, play with Delaney and Bonnie and kind of get into that whole Tulsa kind of thing. But Steve Winwood, after that, he went back and reformed Traffic, and they had, several big albums. But that's going to be my number 3 supergroup.
Well, my number 3 is a band called Mad Season.
Wake up, young man, it's time to wake up.
So Mad Season was a band that was formed in 1994. It came out of the whole Seattle grunge scene. The members were Mike McCready of Pearl Jam, Lane Staley of Alice in Chains on vocals, You had Barrett Martin from the Screaming Trees, and then a guy named John Baker Saunders Jr., who was not necessarily a supergrouper. So during the production of Pearl Jam's Vitology, Mike McCready went into a alcohol and drug rehab program.
I didn't know he had a problem.
I guess he did back then. And that's where he met John Baker Saunders, who was a bass player at the time. And when they got out of the drug rehab program, they formed a side project, and the original name of the band was called the Gacy Bunch. And
like John Wayne Gacy?
I guess, yeah. So they formed this band in '94, and one of the reasons that Mike McCready wanted to get Lane Staley in the band was he was thinking, because Lane Staley was really messed up on drugs back in the day.
Sure.
And they thought, well, if they can get him in this band, their influence on him would, persuade him or dissuade him from doing drugs.
Yeah,
it didn't work though.
Yeah, of course not.
Yeah. So they put out one album in 1994, and it had a couple of I wouldn't call them hits, but they had some chart, songs that hit the chart. And they were a band that sounded, they were sort of a mixture, of course, of Alice in Chains and Pearl Jam.
I could either burn.
So they had two singles that came off that album. The first one was a song called River of Deceit.
River of deceit flows down.
I don't think I've ever heard of these cats.
They had another song called I Don't Know Anything, which hit the number 20 on the mainstream rock charts, and it was very much an Alice in Chains,
Vain.
yeah, vibe, because I don't know anything.
I don't know anything.
I didn't know that was them. I thought that was like a Alice in Chains song.
No, that was a Mad Season song. I mean, when you have Lane Staley singing,
Right,
it pretty
right.
much sounds like Alice in Chains.
All right.
Why we have to live so much every day?
We actually played that song. I'd totally forgotten until I came up with this list and came up with this band. I said, oh, that's something different. But my band back in the 90s, we actually played that song. And I totally forgot we played that song until I put this list together.
All right. Well, memory's a funny thing.
It is a funny thing. Yeah. So it was certified gold in 1995. And then, of course, the band broke up. Lane went back to Alice in Chains. Mike went back to Pearl Jam, and the band was pretty much done.
So it was a one-off deal.
It was a one-off thing, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a very dark, depressing album. When you listen to the vocals, you can hear Lane screaming for help on this album.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For a little piece from God you play.
It's a great album. The production on it is really raw. It's almost underproduced to a certain degree.
How is it you feel it so uneasy?
Beer break.
Holy shit!
Bobby, stop! Bobby, stop!
All right, we got a fresh beer, and we're on to number 2. What's your number 2?
My number 2 supergroup is going to be Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. Now, Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young were an offshoot from 3 bands. Of course, Stephen Stills and Neil Young were in Buffalo, Springfield, and you had Graham Nash from the Hollies and David Crosby came from the Byrds. And all 3 of those bands have been inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Crosby, Stills, and Nash first formed in, California, and they released that CSN album, which came out in, spring or so of 1969.
It's getting to the point where I'm no fun anymore.
Just before Woodstock, Neil Young hooked up with him, and they played at Woodstock together. And of course, we talked about it before, where Neil was there, but he didn't want to be on camera, so they cut him out of the movie. And Neil didn't play all the songs with CSN at that Woodstock show, but he was definitely there. Right after that, in 1970, they released that album called Deja Vu, which was one of the great albums of all time.
Morning, I woke up and I knew you were wrong.
But, you know, the album's pretty huge, and it had 3 songs that, you know, broke the top 40. Woodstock, which was written by Joni Mitchell.
By the time we got to Woodstock, we were heavily strong.
Teach Your Children, and Our House.
Our house is a very, very, very fine house.
The album had so many other great songs on there. You know, Almost Cut My Hair and Helpless, Neil Young song. And it was really just a tremendous album. There's really not a bad song on that album. But, you know, while they were still performing post-Woodstock, they have this album called 4-Way Street, which I actually have it on vinyl, and it's a great album. It's really one of the best live albums of all time. But, you know, Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, they were always kind of, you know, splitting up and doing their own thing. And, you know, you had Crosby, Nash, and you had Neil Young and Stephen Stills doing an album, solo album. And they never really stayed together. They were definitely a supergroup, but they had this different paths that they were all going on. Of course, Neil had his own career, as did Stephen Stills. That brief time when they were together, they were definitely a supergroup, and they you know, left a big fucking mark in, you know, modern music. Of course, in 1988 they regrouped, and this is really because David Crosby got out of prison, and they kind of made a promise to him that if he got out of prison and he got cleaned up, they would go ahead and regroup and cut this album, and it was called American Dream. But, you know, as I said in an earlier episode, in 2000 they regrouped again and went on a tour, kind of a reunion tour. I went up to Dallas, saw them at Reunion Arena, appropriately, and that was a really great concert. That was, you know, all 4 of the members. After that tour, you know, Splitsville again, and they never really regrouped since then. Of course, Crosby died last year, and you know, any hopes of some sort of reunion went with him, but they were really prototypical supergroup.
Old enough now to change your name.
What do you got for number 2?
My
boy?
number 2 is Audio Slave.
Oh yeah.
So Audio Slave was a band that was formed in 2000 with Chris Cornell and basically all the other members of Rage Against the Machine. You know, Tom Morello on guitar. They put out 3 albums from 2002 to 2006.
I think I have a video of that.
Yeah, their first album was really badass. I remember buying it, and it's like, it jams, and Chris Cornell's vocals are just like, he is one of the best vocalists of the 90s for sure, if not all time.
He's an incredible singer.
So what's really cool is on November 25th, 2002, they were the first band to perform on the marquee of the David Letterman marquee outside.
On the roof.
Yeah, it was like on the roof. It was like, well, it was on, no, it wasn't on the roof, it was on the big sign.
You know, I've been to that theater twice.
Really?
Well, no. The first time it was in Rockefeller Center when I was in college, and I went on a New York trip and I saw the Dave Letterman show.
Yeah.
This is like way back in the day, 83. But me and Karen Miles went up to New York, took a trip. We were staying at a hotel that was literally like half a block. And me and Karen decided to go in there and just say, hey, yeah, you can get tickets for tonight.
And you got tickets?
We got the freaking tickets.
That's crazy.
Of course, we couldn't take Miles, so we had to call Wing Chan to go ahead and send a car and get Miles, and he's going to watch him. And then me and Karen, she had to come back, and then I was waiting in line, and it was like, "Where's Karen?" And all of a sudden, the car pulls up, and we walked in. That was a cool night
Oh, wow.
it was Paris Hilton was the guest.
Really?
But you know, the musical guest was really cool. It was Patti Scialfa,
I don't know who that is.
Bruce Springsteen's wife.
Oh, okay. Okay.
She had her own band at the time.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, the Ed Sullivan Theater, man. That's but so they played on the marquee,
the big marquee sign that said
cool.
that said "Late Night with David Letterman."
and that's on YouTube.
Yeah. Probably. Yeah. Hopefully, I can find it.
All
I'm
right.
surprised you didn't see that. I remember watching it live when it happened.
I think I might have.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. One of my dreams would have been to go see David Letterman because I loved David Letterman. I can remember being like 10 years old when it first started and staying up way too late. You know, parents in bed, probably snuck in the living room and was watching. Because at that time he was coming on like at 11:30 at night. You know,
Sure.
So I was staying up way too late to be a 10 or 11-year-old or however old I was. And I remember watching David Letterman thinking, what is this? Because they would do some crazy stuff back then, you know.
Stupid pet tricks.
Yeah.
Stay.
There you go.
Stay.
I was in college. You know, actually, when I was in college, he had a morning show.
Yeah.
And I watched that, and then when I wasn't going to class, but me and my roommate, John Whitehead, would stay up and watch Letterman every night.
Yeah.
I think we would watch Barney Miller first, and then, you know, that would come on. But, you know, we'd stay up, and I'm a huge Letterman
Yeah,
fan.
me too. Me
And,
too. When I was going to TSCC in the early 90s, I can't remember what channel it was. It was like one of those TNT cable channels.
Sure.
But every day at noon, they would play a rerun of David Letterman, and I would watch it every day at noon. Even though those episodes were probably like 3 or 4 or 5 years old. Even
No,
at the time.
David and Paul, and he was the king.
He's still the best.
Look at. Here, let me get a plastic bag.
Yeah. It's starting to rain on us now. All right, sorry we had a little rain delay, but we'll finish off Audio Slave. They sold more than 8 million albums, and they were the first band to play in an open-air concert in Cuba. So I thought that was pretty cool.
I didn't know that.
I didn't either. So now you know.
There were bands playing in Russia back in the 80s. You know, Elton John played there, but I didn't know Cuba was that.
Well, it's an open-air concert.
Oh, okay.
It wasn't just a indoor rock concert, I guess.
All right, cool.
Anyway, so hey, what's your number 1 supergroup? And I wonder if it's going to be mine. I have a feeling it's going to be the same. I mean, I have a feeling I won't have to say anything in this next section of our episode because you're going to say it all. So go for it. It is the Traveling Wilburys.
When your outside's in and your downside's up.
Well, you talk about a supergroup. I mean, that's Bob Dylan, George Harrison, Tom Petty,
Jeff
Jeff
Lynne.
Lynne, and Roy Orbison.
Yeah. You can't get any more supergroup than that.
Yeah. If there was a bigger supergroup, I don't know who it is.
There's not one. There's your glasses in case you
got
need
it.
to read something.
Their Traveling Wilburys Volume 1 album was released in October of 1988, and it really became a huge hit, and it eventually, you know, won a Grammy for Best Duo or Group.
Best Rock Performance, Duo or Group, Traveling Wilburys, Volume 1, Traveling Wilburys.
The impetus for the band was really because of George Harrison. He'd been working with Jeff Lynne as producer on his Cloud 9 album. You know, just at that time, Petty was touring with Bob Dylan, as his backing band, which was that concert that I saw on the Bob Dylan, Tom Petty. You know, it was a great concert because Bob was playing some stuff and Petty was playing some stuff. They played together and all that kind of stuff. But it was really kind of a special concert. But story goes is that, you know, Jeff Lynne and Tom Petty and George Harrison were kind of hanging out, and they went to go see Roy Orbison playing in Anaheim, California, at a concert. And, you know, after the show or whatever, they approached him and said, "Hey, man, we got this, you know, thing we're putting together. You want to be part of it?" And Roy Orbison said, "Yeah, sure."
Yeah.
And Dylan was, you know, obviously on board too, and that was the formation of the Traveling Wilburys. Previously, each member of, you know, Orbison, Harrison, Lynn, and Petty were all, you know, part of that Full Moon Fever album, which is
my favorite Tom Petty album.
Which is your favorite Tom Petty album. You know, with Dylan, all the pieces of the puzzle came together and a die was cast. And they recorded that Volume 1 album, which really had a lot of great songs, like Handle With Care.
You're the best thing that I've ever found. Handle me with care.
Last Night.
Last night, thinking about last night.
And End of the Line.
It's alright, riding around in the breeze. Well, it's alright.
Those songs are so catchy and so great. I mean, I wasn't a huge fan of the Traveling Wilburys back in the day. I loved Tom Petty, but that wasn't really my style of music or what I was into. Probably in the last 5 years or so, especially listening to Tom Petty radio all the time, that album, man, every song is so good.
Trader and the Monkey Man were hard up for cash. They stayed up all night selling cocaine and hash.
On December 7th, 1988, I was boarding a plane at DFW to fly to Hong Kong for my job. I had to go over there for 2.5 weeks, and I was in business class, you know, so it was like
You were
almost like
you were high class, huh?
it was almost like first class.
Did you get free champagne or anything?
Well, funny thing is I got on my plane seat and it was still maybe in the morning, but I got a cocktail and I got a copy of the Dallas Morning News, and I was reading the paper, and right there I think it was on the front page, I heard that Roy Orbison had died.
Oh man. Yeah.
And it was, I think he died on December 6th, because this was December 7th. But, you know, I was bummed because I had bought that CD of Traveling Wilburys, and I played the shit out of it, you know. It was good album. It was really different from a lot of music that
at that time,
yeah. But I love Tom Petty, I love Bob Dylan, I love George Harrison, I wasn't, you know, didn't grow up with Roy, but of course I loved all his songs. And but that was really a day I can, you know, say, hey, I knew where I was when I heard about, you know, Roy Orbison dying. But, you know, that album really kind of lives on because, you know, of course we've lost Tom Petty as well, Roy Orbison and George Harrison. So really all you have left is, you know, Jeff Lynne and Bob Dylan. And they're not getting any younger, but yeah, that's a great album. What do you want to say about it, Troy?
I think you said everything, and we said everything there is to say about it. I love, even, you know, what's funny is their second album was called
Volume 2.
Volume 3.
Oh, what's it called? Volume 3?
Yeah, it was called Volume 3. So there is no Volume 2. Anyway, hey, that's our top 3 supergroups. Leave your picks below, and we'll see you next time in the shed.
Leave some comments.